All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Stray Pixels podcast, where this time we're going to skip the hours-long presentations and finally just give you guys what you want. And apparently, because you clicked on this episode, that's us.
Maybe.
For some reason. So here we are. I am your host. I am Noisy Pixel staff writer Colin Buchanan, and I am joined, as usual, by my co-host, staff writer Nathan Mejia, as well as writer and graphics editor Angelus Victor. How are you doing, Ryuji?
Hello once again, actually. Seems like it's been only yesterday since the gacha game episodes.
This time you can actually see, no, you still can't see him, but like you can see an approximation of him.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can see a Trails version of him.
Yes.
You can see his Naruto OC.
No.
No, shut up. I don't watch Naruto anymore.
But I don't watch Naruto. Never did.
No, I know. Nate and I grew up in a very specific period where like all of Deviant art was like characters that looked vaguely similar to your avatar, heterochromia included, because it was just cooler if your eyes were different colors, and almost all of them were intended to be Naruto OCs.
But anyway, that's not today's topic.
No, today's topic, hopefully, I think the last for now, unless we do get a Nintendo Direct or a Sony presentation before the end of the month as a treat, in our month-long recap and discussion of these endless not E3 promos. So we are gonna bury the lead this time, just because I want to make sure that we get through Capcom's presentation, because there was a lot here. It wasn't as explosive as the thing that happened on Thursday, but there was a lot here.
There was a decent amount.
So this list that I'm looking at, I think, is out of order, because if I remember correctly, we started with Monster Hunter, right?
Yeah, I think so. Let's look at with Sunbreak first.
I believe there were a bunch of ads for already announced games before they began.
Yeah. That's like the pre-roll. That's like watching IGN talk for like an hour.
It's better than watching, the YouTube premiere ticker counting down.
Like
so we got a bunch of details for Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, obviously coming just to Switch and PC still. No news of a port to real consoles,
or
frankly.
Xbox.
But
this is a real console.
Wow.
I love my Switch.
I mean, fair.
I mean, I like my stupid Nintendo games.
Yeah, and I love my PlayStation 3. That doesn't mean that I want new games still coming out for it that are too powerful for it to handle.
I mean, I would take new games for
Monster
PS3.
Hunter Rise looks really cool on the Switch. It does not feel the way that World feels, and that was the deal breaker for me. But I'm happy for all the people that do like it. I have a lot of friends that really like it. We got a bunch of monster announcements. As well as the announcement of a basically a network test, which we got for World, Iceborne, Rise, and now Sunbreak. So that was basically expected, but it is pretty cool.
Basically just acts as the demo in case you weren't already on Monster Hunter to get on Monster Hunter.
Yep, and they also confirmed that you would need to have finished Monster Hunter Rise's quote-unquote main story in order to access the Sunbreak content.
Which actually isn't too bad. You can go pretty fast through it.
We didn't get anything new for Street Fighter. We just got there will be more information before the end of the year. Cool.
The announcement of an announcement, really.
We got a new trailer for Exoprimal, not Dino Crisis game that I don't know anyone that is excited about.
It looks cool. Like it looks like it could be a fun time.
Like, let's be real. It looks like Anthem. It looks like Anthem, but with dinosaurs.
Anthem could have been cool if they didn't fuck it up.
And we got
Actually, to me, at least when I watched it, when I was watching with the founder and Bailey, it was like, to me it felt like Overwatch meets dinosaurs. I know that's a very bad way to describe it, but that's how it felt to me at first, anyway.
You know what? Cult leader is not the worst way to describe Azario, given the way that people talk about him.
Yeah.
We got a tease for a Dragon's Dogma 10th anniversary event. Put a pin in it.
Yeah.
And then we got just an absolute avalanche of Resident Evil news. We got like a couple more seconds of gameplay for Resident Evil 4 Remake.
Yeah.
Everybody's freaking out because Leon can move and shoot now, but let's be real, if they were going to remake this game, it would be completely unacceptable if he couldn't, especially since you can move and shoot in RE2 and 3 Remake. So it would be pretty silly if they just arbitrarily decided you couldn't anymore.
The thing that makes me laugh every time I see Leon is that his jacket is trademarked, like it's part of the asterisks. Like I forgot what the asterisk said though.
Well, I mean, it's kind of funny because like that bomber jacket is kind of a trademark because it's on the cover of the game, even though he loses it like in the first act and he doesn't get it back.
In fact, you get to kill the Ganado who has the jacket on because he thought it was sick and styling.
And we also got details, like vague details about how the Ganado have been completely redesigned, which I don't know what that means. I guess it might look like if you try to do a one-to-one translation into RE Engine as it exists now, it might be a little goofy because the games look a lot more photorealistic.
Well, I took that as, from what it sounded when they were announcing it, was that it's totally read on AI. So Ganados are going to probably be smarter.
Sure.
Which, that's cool, I guess.
I don't know that I needed the chainsaw guy to be smarter. I already broke enough controllers attempting to not die in that encounter, but okay.
He's easy, man. He's easy. That one's like chump change. So when you get to the regenerators that I want to like shoot something.
We got a whole bunch of news finally on expansion content for Resident Evil Village. Obviously Resident Evil 7 got, several story expansions and then a whole series of shorter DLC, like alternate universe episodes that weren't canon to the story. And so now we're finally getting details on Resident Evil Village. And unlike Capcom, I am not going to spoil the end of Resident Evil Village in this podcast.
Yeah, the trailer literally did that.
Yeah, I didn't think about it because I had finished 8, but I was like, huh. But now that you're saying it, it's like, huh, they really just outed the main plot point, didn't they?
Yep. We got a confirmation of a new story DLC that is going to be taking place after the very end of Resident Evil 8 Village. Which cool, really excited about that. God knows what's going to happen in 9 at this point, if it's going to continue following that or if it's going to be closer to Village, but we will have to see. Also, it's going to be playable in third person, and third person mode is being retroactively added to Resident Evil 8 as part of the paid expansion. Resident Evil 8 is also getting a mercenaries mode, which lets people play as big titty goth mommy.
Yes.
Lady D.
I'm excited for it.
I'm excited because I get to play as Heisenberg, who nobody was talking about until the game came out, but he definitely has a fan base.
He has that Nick Cage energy.
Yeah,
he'd walk in and order an Italian cheese bread. I'll tell you what.
I know people that are like very strange individuals that like have a thing for Lucas Baker, and they ate Carl Heisenberg up, And you know what? I kind of get it this time. So moving right along. We finally got confirmation that Resident Evil REverse, which was the multiplayer mode that was supposed to come out with 8, will be launching on October 28th, which is the same day as I think all of the rest of this DLC content. But I don't know what this is going to be. I don't know why they feel like they need it when they're also adding mercenaries mode. I don't know how many people want this still, but it's gonna be a thing. And then lastly, the shadow drop of the previously announced current gen ports of Resident Evil 7, 2, and 3. I have played some of 2 already, and it looks nice, and the haptic feedback is on point. I'm really happy that developers are trying to take better advantage of that, because like in my year and a half of owning a PS5, I've still had very few games give me like quite the same controller feel as Astro's Playroom does, because Astro's Playroom just like, you know, takes it up to 11 the whole time. I was waiting for something else to like do that.
In my case, it's only Astro's Playroom, and the only one that even came a little bit close, but not really, was Genshin Impact. That's all.
Genshin kind of does,
yeah. Genshin kind of.
But like
I don't notice that much.
The like with Genshin, the much more significant bonus to the PS5 upgrade is stable performance, frankly, because of how badly it chugs on the base PS4. I have they said that the Switch version's not canceled. I have no idea how they think they're going to make this work on Switch. I have no idea.
It'll work.
That's a topic for another time.
It'll work. It'll do it. I don't know how good it would be, but they'll do it.
Yeah, that's a can of worms that we can discuss in this episode.
So moving right along to Thursday, we got 2 events at the same time. I don't know why Capcom made this decision. It was very stupid of them, because no one gave a shit about their thing, but their thing was Dragon's Dogma 2 getting announced, which is cool. I know a lot of people that like Dragon's Dogma. They should have just pulled this back a day. This event should have happened on Wednesday or Friday. That's all. That's like my boyfriend was like, wait, they announced a sequel? I thought the whole point of the first one was that they broke the cycle. I don't know, man, but it got so hilariously overshadowed that I don't know why this was a decision that was made.
To me, I was like, wait, it's at the same time, like hour for hour, and I was like, why not just delay it? I don't know, 2 hours, because the Final Fantasy VII broadcast was like 10 minutes.
Yeah, and we knew what was gonna happen. So let's talk about it. So the Final Fantasy VII presentation, obviously to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the original game, we started with an announcement, a surprise announcement, that Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade would be finally making its way to Steam the next day.
Which is already up right now. By the time we're recording this, it's already up with a 28% off sale, which I personally did not understand the need for this sale, since in about 5 days from now, we're going to get the Steam Summer Sale. So
it's probably to jump onto that retroactively, and get adopters for Steam, because I had actually thought it was already out on Steam for some reason.
Nope, it was an Epic exclusive. It seems like all of Square's PC ports are timed Epic Game Store exclusives. But my best guess is they knew that the summer sale was starting in a couple of days, and they didn't want to just lose potential sales on day one because people decided to wait. So they just put it on sale early, so that they could have their launch day sales. Because like otherwise, there would be a very large contingent of people just deciding to not buy it on day one. And if very few people buy your really big ticket game on launch day, even if it is a port twice over, that doesn't look good for you. So
a little bit.
I imagine that's why that happened. We got to look at some dope ass new merch Thankfully, they spent very little time on it, and this was not a repeat of the stupid Dragon Quest stream, which I bring up every week because I'll die mad about it.
That was.
Then we got brief updates for a couple of the mobile games. I feel like there actually could have been more here, but we got season 3 of Final Fantasy VII: The First Soldier. Ryuji, do you want to talk about this a little bit, because you're the only one of us that's
okay? I'll talk about like but very little, because this was because I had expectations that in this broadcast they were like, oh, maybe First Soldier will get a PC port finally.
I don't know why it hasn't.
And it didn't happen. Oh, it was a repeat trailer of what to expect in season 3, which has been which at the time of the broadcast it had already been going for what, a week or so. No, it was not great. In fact, I basically I just was like, Bailey, here's the article, that because I had pre-written a few things that I thought would happen, and yeah, it flopped badly. To be honest, I didn't know what to expect.
I mean, again, this is news that was going to get overshadowed.
Yeah,
totally.
We also got a big shiny new trailer for Ever Crisis, which apparently, based on some interactions that happened in the Noisy Pixel community Discord server, there's people that don't know what this game is. So Ever Crisis was announced a couple of years, or I think last year, at this, like early last year at the same presentation, where they announced Intergrade and The First Soldier. And what Ever Crisis is, we didn't know the extent of it until we saw this new trailer. Ever Crisis is effectively a readaptation of the original Final Fantasy VII compilation universe. So that would be before Crisis, Crisis Core, Final Fantasy VII itself, Dirge of Cerberus, and Advent Children, released episode by episode in a mobile gacha game, which we also did get confirmation that it will be a weapon gacha. All characters and episodes will be free.
To me, it basically will feel like, I guess, like Luminaria did, but
yeah, that was kind of my thought. But people are going to give a shit.
Yeah,
that's the thing, because but I actually I found a pretty interesting comparison to Ever Crisis, is that it actually works pretty much like Dissidia does, because in Dissidia you only get the weapons, right? The characters join you.
So the characters all in Dissidia are free. They are all unlocked through gameplay. Some of them are added on a limited time basis and then added permanently later. But you can obtain all of them. And yes, it is just the weapons that are gacha based. The gacha system in Dissidia is a little bit strange, because once you've been playing for a while, you don't really need to draw duplicates, but when you're starting out, you absolutely do, because there is a resource that you get that can basically upgrade. So the system, how it works is you are incentivized to basically pull 4 copies of each rare weapon, because once you have fully limit broken a weapon by upgrading it with 3 of itself, then the weapon's ability becomes passive and the character can just have it while equipping a different weapon. But once you have been playing for a while and you've drawn a lot of dupes that you don't need, and you've been able to just sell them because you don't need them, you will have a resource that will let you skip that and basically just go right from drawing your first copy of something to having it maxed out without having to do extra pulls. I don't know how close that's going to be to Ever Crisis, because we saw fairly little of the gameplay, and it's still only going to be in closed beta test later this year, which I'm going to try to get into. It looked sort of like, from what I could infer, it looked like a cross between Opera Omnia and Union Cross, where the attacks themselves are linked to the gacha, but we will see. The scale of this is much bigger than anything that we had really expected, given the graphical look that we got at it. Because like this is effectively the high definition remake that everybody wanted for Final Fantasy VII originally. It looks great. Like this looks extremely sick. Ryuji, I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Were you going to say something?
So here's the thing about Ever Crisis that I really enjoy is that, well, the graphics look just about what you expect from a mobile game, but I'm so glad that they don't shove it into Unreal Engine 4 and just hope for the best, because Unreal Engine 4 in mobile devices, yeah, it has proven to be a bit not bad, but like it definitely doesn't work as well as it would on a PC.
Graphically, it looks about on par with like Final Fantasy 13.
Yeah,
which is insane for a mobile game, but like that's how good flagship phones have gotten these days. Presumably there will be lower graphical fidelity options because obviously in Japan especially there's a really big budget phone market and they don't want to like lock out people from being able to play the game. I am kind of surprised that we didn't get an announcement of like a Switch port for this or something, because I think that it would be pretty at home on the Switch. But you know, who knows in the future. And I'm also surprised that we didn't get announcements for like tie-ins for the other Square mobile games. So you know, speaking as someone who did City Opera Omnia is the main game that I play, there's not any sort of like collaboration event or commemoration or anything like that. And I would imagine something similar for Brave Exvius, War of the Visions, and Record Keeper. So that's kind of disappointing, but we'll probably see more when the other games start like actually releasing.
It kind of makes sense because they just considered any mobile games that were under the Final Fantasy VII moniker, because that is First Soldier and Ever Crisis. Those are the only two that like go under this moniker. Other games like Dissidia, they don't strictly fall, and it would feel very out of place to see such announcements in a broadcast that is dedicated to Final Fantasy VII first and foremost.
Yeah, I know. I wasn't like expecting like a whole trailer or anything. Mostly just like a hey, events will be running in these other games as well to commemorate the you know, the thing that we're having this presentation for. But you know, I'll take what I can get. I want Ever Crisis quite badly, but not quite as badly as I want the next thing that was discussed, which just like last week, the big like announcement of this presentation was leaked the day before by the same guy that leaked the Persona Xbox ports and the entire PlayStation State of Play from a couple weeks ago. So this guy is clearly figuring out information from multiple companies. I don't know how much longer they're going to be able to operate like this, but you know, obviously we as Noisy Pixel can't really comment on the leaks in terms of like, well, this is a leak for a thing that's probably going to be announced tomorrow, and we don't want to like, it's not worth the you know, burning the goodwill of our friends at Publisher PR. But there was an image tweeted out of Zach from towards the end of Crisis Core where he's walking past an apparition of Aerith. And there was no text to the tweet. There was only 4 colored boxes, red, blue, green, and black, obviously indicating Switch, PlayStation, Xbox, and Steam. And lo and behold, we have a Crisis Core. They're calling it a remaster. I'm not really sure about that moniker, given how different it looks. It looks like the game has been pretty completely rebuilt. And it's also redubbed, which I'm not especially happy about.
Actually, fun fact about this Crisis Core remaster, it actually doesn't have an English web page yet, only a Japanese one, and the Japanese one has a staggering amount of information compared to the English one. Like, this is where we found out about the full voice, I believe. Yeah, we even posted it after the site went up. There was like this many screenshots, and they also said like there will be new arranged BGM tracks. The UI has been completely reworked, but that was pretty much it. Like, no English page, and the Japanese like side of the page did state that yes, everything, all the voice actors are the same as they have always been in Japanese. So Japanese fans,
this is not true for English. And so we only really heard Zach Zach speaking, but they basically just showed a couple of like the most famous lines out of the game, starting with boy oh boy, the price of freedom is steep. And right away I could tell this is not Rick Gomez. This is Zach's new voice actor from Final Fantasy VII Remake, which I am not particularly thrilled about. We don't know the extent to the rest of the redub, if it's going to involve characters that may or may not even be appearing in the remainder of the remake project. So that would be all the other original characters, Cisne, Sung, Lazard, Angeal, and Genesis. But concerning Genesis, speaking of the entire Japanese voice cast being the same, so for many years, the only reason that we as fans had for why this game could never get a re-release, despite people obviously wanting it, was that they couldn't pay to relicense Gact in Japanese as Genesis, and lo and behold, he is still here. So I don't know why they waited this long. That was all we had to go on, and it wasn't true. So
yeah, because the story I had heard about it was that Gact also had a hand in help funding it, and that Gact had a bad habit of starting projects, reviving them, and then pulling out from them when he lost interest. And that was a story I always heard.
Because this is also a weird case of this game was never released digitally before.
Nope.
So even when the PSP store was still alive, this was a physical only release, which is so weird in this day and age to think about. But anyway, that's going to be out this winter for all of those platforms. Yes, including Nintendo Switch. And Xbox. No, we don't know why. Because it's definitely not coming to Nintendo Switch or Xbox, is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Yeah, the second, which is basically Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2. I guess it's called Rebirth.
So my best guess is they didn't want to call it Remake Part 2 because that would calling the first one Remake was very clearly intentionally deceptive marketing to preserve the surprise of what happens in the game. And I feel like calling it Remake Part 2 would imply that it is the second part of a faithful remake of Final Fantasy VII, and B would imply that again they are directly following the story, which they cannot do. There has been too many changes already. So we're gonna talk a lot more about this in the second half of this episode. But
oh my god, this is gonna be amazing.
We got basically a sizzler trailer for Rebirth coming to PS5 exclusively, which we probably all should have expected. Winter, next winter. So we don't know if that means December of 2023 or January, February, March of 2024. But by that point, I think the cord of, the umbilical cord of the previous generation will have been well and truly cut. And that's fine. But this So this means that within a year of each other, and I've mentioned this before in several public forums, but I still can't believe that it's accurate. We will be getting Final Fantasy 16, Final Fantasy 14 7.0, and Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth all within 12 months of each other.
Yeah,
that is nuts.
There were a lot of posts saying Square Enix fans are eating good today.
And potentially, you know, I still have my eyes on late 2024 for Kingdom Hearts 4. We'll have to see.
And there's also
in case you didn't have enough JRPGs, we're also getting Trails into Reverie that fall.
Yes.
So
which I have been preparing for, and I am like a quarter way through second chapter now.
Yep.
Are you? Because that's a long fucking game.
Yeah, I'm about more than halfway through chapter 3. I know there's like 10 chapters.
Damn. Okay. Good job.
Yeah.
And there's also the one thing that I'm looking forward to knowing is the supposed trademark that Square did, which is I think it was called Final Fantasy: The Final Line, which many people thought it would be a theater-driven. Sorry, I can't pronounce that game's name properly. Theater-driven Final Fantasy. So people thought there would be a teaser of that, but that did not happen. So I'm curious about what is the trademark about, because
we can speculate. But we're gonna spend the whole second half of this episode doing that. So real quick, I want to get through because we're running low on time here. So they also announced the third part will be the final part. This will be a trilogy. And that the third part has already started pre-production. So I would imagine that they're looking to get the end of this saga out before the end of this console generation. Which is very welcome. And we got little letters from a couple of the project leaders talking about how excited they are. And that's really cool. A lot of people that I know were doomsaying, being like, oh, I'm so excited to play the second part of Final Fantasy VII Remake in 2028. And I was like, fuck you, it's coming sooner than that. I can tell you it's coming sooner than that. And it's going to be a trilogy, because they're like, oh, well, they only adapted Midgard. Midgard's like 1/6 of the game. And I'm like, did you not play the game? This is not what you think it is.
No, it's definitely not.
You think we're going in a straight line and now we're just going to move on to, Calm and then Nibelheim and Junon and Gold Saucer and Cosmo Canyon in that order. We're not. Doesn't seem like it. So
not at all.
I hope you guys are ready for part 2, because we have lots of theories about this.
I'm ready. My body is ready.
I'm going to warn everyone ahead of time before we finish out part 1. If we haven't spoiled enough of Final Fantasy VII Remake for you, part 2 is going to come with full spoilers for the entire game, as well as what we saw in the trailer for Rebirth. So if you're not prepared for that, if you haven't played this game yet, please, you can feel free to leave the rest of this episode for later. We are happy that you joined us for whatever time that you did, but we highly encourage you to go and experience this game for yourself, just to see what all is happening. Whatever preserved classified information you haven't found out about yet, that should be yours to experience, not ours to spoil for you. This game was really, really good. Go play it.
Yes.
Yep.
All right. And with that, we are going to take a quick break. And when we come back, there will be wild, rampant, and irresponsible speculation. In a minute. We're just going to go with it. Welcome back. So in the first half of this week's episode, we just did as straight as we could with this group of a recap of the Capcom Dragon's Dogma and Final Fantasy VII 25th anniversary presentations. And in this half, we're just gonna go knuck and futz, man. There's a lot to think about and talk about and speculate about and just loudly wonder about.
In fact, this is where we would cut to the intro and then have a big text font that says this part 2 may or may not contain absolute chaos and tons of car spoilers, especially from Final Fantasy.
I mean, if Nathan wants to put that in, he can.
I could.
Viewer discretion is advised.
Okay, so because there has to be some kind of organization to this, because look who you're talking to. I want to start with speculation that is just related to Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core Reunion.
Okay.
So, because I've seen people be like, so are they going to change it? I don't know. I don't think we're going to see much of a change because I don't see a reason for that to happen.
If anything's going to change, it's not going to be till the ending.
Yeah.
During the fight. Because I have a big generic theory about what's kind of happening.
So it like in this game specifically, or across this game and REbirth?
Across this game and REbirth, and kind of into 7 a little bit because of the ending of that.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. So I'm going to go with you. I think Reunion is going to be mostly unchanged until the ending. The ending is then, I think, going to start leading into Final Fantasy VII Remake to tie it in, and that's why they kept with the new voice actors with everything. Because while Final Fantasy Crisis Core kept into 7, this I think will go into 7 Remake. And the big thing was that at the end of 7, when you're when you're fighting Sephiroth and the 3 Kadaj and all them, because I'm convinced it's them. You cut to Zack and you see the ghost flying around, and he's doing the famous line, the boy oh boy fights the freedom the steep. I think you're gonna see the ghost a little bit, and then when Cloud, Aerith, and everybody defeat Sephiroth, that's when the timelines are gonna smash together.
So you're talking real quick. You're talking about the specters from 7 Remake.
Yeah, the Timekeeper ghosts.
Okay. Like I didn't get the feeling that the Timekeeper ghosts were meant to represent specific characters. I felt like they were meant to be just completely conceptual. Like out of universe, the pretty widely accepted explanation is that they represent the segment of the fan base that was demanding a shot for shot no changes remake from a team that wanted to do more than that. So that's why they spend the entire game like trying to keep things on exactly the correct track. But like I don't know if that jives with the explanation of like Sephiroth as he exists in 7 Remake, because Sephiroth as he exists in 7 Remake is effectively Sephiroth from the end of Advent Children, having gone back in time to try and make things work his way. I feel like if they were meant to be specific people, it wouldn't make sense for them to try and keep the timeline the same, because these people all, at least somewhat failed.
Well, and Sephiroth at that point though doesn't want to keep the timeline the same. He wants it to change. He wants
because he dies at the end of the original timeline. He doesn't get to do the thing he wanted to do.
So much for being the savior of the world.
I mean, he's just kind of insane by the end of that. Like, he starts as a well-intentioned extremist and then goes past any reasonable possibility that what he's doing is still correct, because he just becomes an omnicidal maniac who decides that the best way to end human suffering is just to end humans. That's his whole thing. My theory for if they're going to make changes to Reunion, I do not think that they're going. So if they do change the end, I could see them changing the end cutscene, but I could see them making it New Game Plus content, because Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core already has a New Game Plus built into it. Nothing really changes; it just carries over your levels and adds the extra difficulty mode. Because you can play in hard mode. But I think that is personally how I would do it: is make a new cutscene that ties more directly into 7 Remake, and then have the end and make it specifically what you see after you beat the game the second time, because I think that I think that the ending of the original game is just too good to mess with, you know?
Yeah.
Actually,
because if Zach doesn't die at the end of the game, it like that is the foregone conclusion that the whole thing is building up to.
Yeah.
And that is what gives the game like the emotional like weight and dramatic irony that it has, is knowing the context of Zach is going to die at the end of this game. He does not survive what's happening here. Ultimately, this is all going to catch up with him.
Yeah.
So I think that changing it so that he just survives and 7 Remake happens in what is supposed to be a remaster, and they keep using the word remaster as if we don't have eyes, would be like kind of violating the spirit of the game. But I do think that it should be a new game plus cutscene, just like so that you have that Easter egg for people that are dedicated enough to play the whole game twice.
Honestly, I don't think they might do that, because I know playing through games twice is nice and all, but I think there's a good chunk of people that just don't want to bother with that.
And those people can watch it on YouTube.
Yes.
Don't act like that's not what most of us did for the Limit Cut episode, Ryuji.
Yeah, but I personally think they might include it as a secret episode. Like, if you can complete enough achievements.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Or if you complete all of the missions.
Yeah, all the missions, including the side ones. Then, like, as alongside the ending, and a secret movie kind of thing will play that ties into Remake.
Well, I mean, like, the thing is that about 60% of this game are recycled content side missions. So
yeah.
But even then, it's I feel putting it as a reward for doing all the side missions and missions on your first playthrough as a secret movie is better, because you don't have to play through the entire story over again.
Yeah, I would be more in favor of that, of it being a KH style secret movie.
I can see that. I mostly
because many people think that, like, because of the changed remake story, like, people are like, oh, so Final Fantasy VII is going full on Kingdom Hearts now, and that's
I don't get why the hell they say that. I don't.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, y'all, have you guys ever played a JRPG before?
Yeah, this is all very fair JRPG stuff.
A lot of people are like, I bet, tell me you haven't played Final Fantasy 1 without telling me you ever played Final Fantasy 1, because apparently the story in Final Fantasy 1, like the OG, the first Final Fantasy, it's so convoluted with time loops and everything.
That's why it's so funny to me that, like, people act like the end of Stranger of Paradise is this huge spoiler, when it's like, no, it's just the plot of Final Fantasy 1. It's just,
like it
like, you should have known ahead of time what was going to happen.
Yeah, we all kept saying that, oh, like, just me and my friend, we kept saying, oh, we're just going to become chaos. That's going to be the end. We're going to become chaos. Let's become chaos.
Like, other stuff happens on the way, obviously, but like that's how this story was going to end. But like, at this, I don't think that they're going to fuck with something that people have been so desperately craving as a Crisis Core remaster, especially since this is the first time that this game has been re-released in any capacity since it was printed on physical media.
Yeah.
Because Final Fantasy VII has been ported to every goddamn console that exists at this point. But Crisis Core has been stuck on a UMD since it came out, to the point where there's a whole version of the PSP that exists that can't even play the game because it doesn't have a UMD slot. So,
oh my god, are you really poking the hornet's nest that was the PSP Go?
Nobody liked the PSP Go. I had a PSP Go. I didn't really like it that much.
So, like, I think that the Crisis Core experience should be basically left untouched.
Okay.
I would be in favor of adding like extra episode that you have to like go back to the main menu of the game for after you've already beaten it, the way that you did in like Birth by Sleep, for example.
Okay.
But I don't think that amending the end of the game itself would be received well at all.
Or they could do like how Final Fantasy VII does it, like where you can press L1 or R1 in the title screen, and it would like change the menu color and everything, indicating. I believe it does that. It does that for intermission, right?
I don't remember. It's been a minute. I played it on launch day, and I haven't played it since.
Yeah, I started on launch day, but I never actually finished intermission. I really integrate.
You should.
I really should. I'll probably start that tonight.
I think that it's a hot button issue, and I think that it's going to backfire really badly if they mess with it.
I think you're gonna get a lot of angry fans.
Yeah,
and I don't think they want that.
Oh, they don't care. They don't care that much if they're willing to change Final Fantasy VII that much. When we had frothing fans hating Final Fantasy VII remake because it's not a remake.
Yeah.
So we're gonna use that to sort of seg into discussion of oh no, wait, I have one more goofy little thing. So at the end of Crisis Core, it says to be continued in Final Fantasy VII. I think that it would be really funny if they changed it to be continued in Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis.
Oh yeah,
I got that. That's good. That would be hilarious, really.
Which is weird because isn't Crisis Core supposed to also be an Ever Crisis?
Yes. But like, let's be real. Ever Crisis doesn't exist to adapt Crisis Core. Ever Crisis only exists so that people don't have to play Dirge of Cerberus. Because Square does not want you to play Dirge of Cerberus and know how bad it actually was.
For Dirge of Cerberus remake after part 2 of Final Fantasy VII. I can't wait for it. They're gonna do it.
I honest to goodness never. I hear very little of Dirge of Cerberus. I only know it's Vincent's game or something.
It's bad. It's a bad game that was not thought through properly.
Are we talking Final Fantasy 14 1.0 bad or just bad?
Yeah, no. I mean, like, so Final Fantasy 14 1.0, just like there was a lot of stuff in it that just straight up did not work, as opposed to stuff that wasn't thought through correctly.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the stuff in 14 was in reaction to like criticisms that the internal team had of 11 and the way that it operated.
Yeah.
But with Dirge of Cerberus, they were just like, hey, what if we just made a third-person shooter for the first time, literally ever, but we tried to really clumsily integrate RPG mechanics into it? This is the kind of game where you can stop in the middle of a boss fight and go to a vending machine to buy more potions because you ran out of potions, and then just go back and resume the boss fight.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. For those who are listening, yes, I never played it. Yeah, as I said,
you don't have to. No one should. Don't listen to the Vincent stands. It's not worth it. Just go.
All you gotta do is play the remake, man.
If you have to, and you're not patient enough to wait for Ever Crisis, like go watch the up-rendered cutscenes on YouTube. But I will warn you, the plot of this game is also extremely fucking stupid. So.
Isn't it mostly about how he got
I can already hear the Vincent fans going, they did my boy dirty.
Dude, they already did him dirty. His whole plot point is that he got cucked by fucking Hojo of all people.
It's idiotic. And best left behind, or I guess at least in Ever Crisis, where hopefully it will be abbreviated. But in any case.
So there is something that I actually wanted to talk about, and that is regarding the announcement that REbirth would be this game 2 out of a trilogy. Like they announced it was going to be a trilogy, and I was like, that I think that sort of makes sense when you consider that the original Final Fantasy VII, it originally came in 3 discs. So I guess you could consider remake plus integrate disc 1, rebirth disc 2 alongside the other intermission that I think they got planned, and then disc 3 is going to be whatever the next game is going to be called, which, by the way, the name I'm going to just jump into another theory after this. So what do you guys think? Do you think it's a valid theory?
I think that it's probably a coincidence, honestly, because I feel like Square has like a thing for trilogies. First of all, Kingdom Hearts 1, 2, and 3, Final Fantasy 13, 1, 2, and 3. I feel like this is just kind of an established like expectation, and to extend it past 3 games would have been really excessive.
And to be fair, Final Fantasy VII, the third disc was basically just Sephiroth fight, boss fight, and some extra stuff. There's hardly any story in it.
The final discs of all of the PlayStation 1 games are effectively extremely neutered open world exploration because of some sort of plot reason. And the final dungeon in Final Fantasy VII, I believe it's the approach of Meteor. In 8 it's time compression, and in 9 it is Memoria appearing and apparently just locking you out of half of the world of the game for unexplained reasons. So I don't know that I mean, you know, if you think it's valid, it's valid, but I would not personally think that was really like a thing that was in their minds. Especially since if we were going by strict like one-to-one adaptation, Remake really only adapts the first half of the first disc. Because the first disc does not stop at Midgar. It keeps going all the way up through Aerith dying. And then the second disc, I don't remember much about what happens on the second disc aside from the Cloud Zack plotline.
It's most of the Cloud Zack plotline, and I think that's when they start opening up the weapon fights.
Which, like, you know, I would expect weapons to show up in Remake at some point, but I don't know. Not to like put you down, but like I don't think you've played 7, have you, Ryuji?
No, I actually tried to play it, but for some like I tried, I have it on Steam, but for some reason, like, well, my you know about this faulty graphics card that I have.
Your poor 1050 Ti.
Yeah, for some reason, I tried all sorts of drivers, but it just doesn't do well with the OpenGL in the port.
You know what it does do well on, though, Ryuji?
What?
For the listening audience, Nate is holding up his Switch for the 3rd time this episode.
Yes.
I mean, hey, you could always just wait and play it through Ever Crisis, because it will completely be readapting the story, and it will look shiny and new.
Yeah,
it won't have MIDI music.
I like the MIDI music.
So I'm going to actually kickstart a theory, but that theory might not be known to the people listening, because it's a theory that's been popular in Japanese forums more like, and that is how REbirth is called. So when you put REbirth into Japanese katakana, it's ribasu.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, ribasu can also like mean reverse, as in rewinding something. Yeah. So people have been speculating a lot because of this word, like because it cannot be. I mean, the Japanese version is the one that's being developed first, so everyone is like, I wonder why they chose ribasu, because
the game, first of all, the game is getting a worldwide
release,
day and date release. It's these games don't come out in Japan first anymore.
That's pretty much the norm.
But I mean, we did already rewind in the end of Remake Part 1. Like that is how we got Avalanche coming back to life, and then eventually it resolved with Zack's death being undone.
Yeah.
So I don't really know, like, I get REbirth because again, they really should not call it Remake Part 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, overall, call it Remake Part 2 would have been just really lame. Like,
I agree.
Yeah, and it's really weird because, like, it's obviously they're going. This one's called Rebirth mostly because of the remake Rebirth. I would have thought the third one would have been just called a Reunion, but now Crisis Core is called Reunion.
Yeah, it's really weird that Crisis Core Reunion is the one that got that moniker, because reunion is a word that is like very heavily associated with Advent children specifically, because like the whole plot is, you know, the Sephiroth clones attempting the reunion, and this pops up in 7, but I think there's only one reference made to it in all of Crisis Core.
Yes, because it's a couple of guys, I think nearing one of the approaches to one of the test sites.
Yeah,
he's just standing there saying, like, barely saying reunion.
So, you know, it's cool that the Sephiroth clones were already being teased in 7, even though they would not really become as big of a plot point as they are until Advent Children. But it does, it is kind of a strange choice of words. Actually, my best guess so far for what the third part is going to be called is Resolve.
Okay. Resolve. Okay.
Yeah, Resolve, Kakugo, which resolve. I'm trying to think how it would sound in Japanese, because clearly that plays a part in it. Or I mean, you know, not, and I'm just being crazy.
Part of me keeps going back to the joke that everybody was making after, you know, we all collectively finished Remake, and the Evangelion rebuild jokes that were being made, because it was like, oh well, the actual title is Final Fantasy VII You Cannot Remake. So I don't know, I keep kind of going back to that in terms of like how they're approaching the whole thing. So unless either of you has anything beyond or like before what we got in the trailer for Rebirth, I'm gonna kind of move on to that.
Yeah, because everything I have going forward is going into Rebirth now.
Sure.
Because I have a major theory that they're doing this Crisis Core remaster, remake, whatever, because Zack is going to be a much bigger part in Rebirth.
I mean, I feel like that it has like, so just even before all of this happened, based on the end of 7 Remake, I think that if Zack was not like a massive part of the like either 2 or 2 and 3, that would be kind of strange, because Zack coming back to life is, if I remember correctly, the last thing that you see at the end of 7 Remake.
It's one of the last things. The very last thing I think is that you see Zack and Aerith cross places. Then she turns around and says that she misses the metal sky.
So, well, yes, because that is from the, you know, that is a reference to the end of the Midgar arc from the original game, because she does also say she misses but like putting Zack last and then not making him a huge part going forward would be a very strange, like directorial, narrative, cinematographical decision, because the last thing is the most important. It's why, like, you know, spoilers for Free Guy. I felt like the end of Free Guy was kind of weird, because they put the resolution to like the movie long will they won't they romance before the resolution of Ryan Reynolds' character and Kevin James's character meeting again at the end of the movie.
Yeah. When
the end of the romance is obviously like the more important thing and should have been last.
Yeah.
So like, I would have to imagine that Zack is a point of view character, because he is going back towards Midgar. I feel like, I'm pretty sure the end of 7 Remake, and we don't know fully if Zack is time displaced, meaning that he is literally picking up exactly where he left off, or if what we saw was Zack just undying 5 years ago, or however long. I think it was only a couple months at that point. Actually.
Yeah, no, it was only a couple months.
They said 5 years, and that's why it's stuck in my head.
No,
so
it's 5 years after him and Cloud get stuck into the Sephiroth pods.
So if we now have a universe with 2 Clouds, because that was what he was doing at the end of Crisis Core, was trying to bring Cloud back to Midgar. So, and obviously that doesn't jive with the Cloud that we have as our protagonist of Remake and of Rebirth going forward. So I don't know, there's shenanigans afoot, but I would have to imagine that they would not go through the trouble of bringing back one of the most beloved characters in the entire franchise, like bar none. Just to I think that you could pretty easily say that Zack Fair is the most beloved character in the Final Fantasy VII property.
Yeah.
He's everybody's favorite.
And even
and sort of the way that Vivi is everyone's favorite in Final Fantasy IX. Like, he's just, you know, we gravitate towards the good eggs, you know. But like,
there's also the thing that, like, just in general, like, everyone, even Square, like, says it in their website, his legacy gave birth to Final Fantasy VII, because yes, he was the previous like owner of the Buster Sword, and before that it was Angio who passed it on to him. Like the whole point of Crisis Core was that it was sort of a prologue, like a disc 0 to Final Fantasy VII, I would say.
Yeah, because like it was, so obviously Crisis Core itself spoils Final Fantasy VII, because one of the biggest mysteries of the original game is who the fuck is Zack Fair and why do people keep talking about him? Because Cloud has assimilated effectively Zack's, or his image of Zack into his own person, and that is why everybody that knew him before the beginning of the game comments that he's acting strangely, especially Tifa, who is the one that, you know, goes into his head and actually works through the whole thing. So just like having the context of Zack and Cloud were really close friends, and Cloud watched Zack die, and then you see him pick up the Buster Sword and start dragging it towards Midgar at the end of the game.
My God, that's the I can see how many people cry during that scene.
It's like that's what I mean by the end of this game should not be touched. Because this is one of those like most famously tear-jerking moments in any video game that exists, especially with that backing track. With Y playing in the background. And you know, Zack's voiceover, just reiterating like how hopeful he is for the future. Like, I'm getting emotional. Like, I'm trying not to show that I'm getting emotional right now, because I have such strong like emotional memories attached to this moment. Don't mess with it. Please leave it. Please change it. Please let it be separated.
On a lighter note though, I'm seeing a lot of fans that like really want. There was one thing about Crisis Core, and that was the emails that Zack got. Apparently there was an email. I did not remember this from the game until someone pointed out. There's this weird like lore about Sephiroth hidden in an email. I think it was called the Shinra fan club or something, where they talked about how Sephiroth uses a whole bottle of shampoo every time he washes his hair.
I remember
like, that's a canon thing that they inserted. That was like, wait, that was a thing? Because Crisis Core, I would love to replay it, because I don't remember much from it back when I played, because I think that's why. I think that's why Reunion is happening, is because Zack is going to be a huge part of at least Rebirth, and they want to like make their. So I think that if the only access that people legally had to Crisis Core's story was to either find a UMD and a working PSP,
or play it through a mobile game, which not everybody is going to like having to do, that would be very polarizing for the people that never got to experience Crisis Core.
Especially since Ever Crisis is gonna be episodic, so
who knows when it's gonna be done.
You would have to wait, because if we know Square, for the love of God, Square, please don't take like 9 months to release just one chunk of, I don't know, the first chapter of Dirge of Cerberus or something, because that would be chaotic.
I would imagine it's going to be like Record Keeper, where they don't like mainline through any of them. They just like kind of drop, you know, part of this game and then part of this game and then part of this game.
Oh, I fucking hate that. I would fucking hate that.
Like, otherwise it would take them forever just to get through Final Fantasy VII itself, and they'd never get to Dirge of Cerberus or Advent Children.
Yeah, but like, people who are going to play it for the first time are going to be so confused. They want to talk about Kingdom Hearts confusing storytelling. Playing it like that would be
I don't know. We'll see. We are going to have to see. This is just what I am thinking.
Yeah.
But we're going to have to see what ultimately comes of it.
The closed beta, it needs to come soon, even though I'm pretty sure that this first closed beta, that it's going to be just very little of the story, if anything.
That's fine. I think we all just need a taste of what this is going to be like.
And I would advise anyone playing the closed beta, if you get like the strongest weapons, and it's okay if you do not want to bother with the grind, because if from my experience with closed betas is that it's just not worth it grinding your ass off after you finish the story content of the beta.
No.
Because everything's just gonna be deleted, trashed, your progress wasted. So I would rather just put that time into, okay, I finished all the story of the closed beta, and then
we're getting off topic.
Yeah, we're getting very off topic. There's a lot of no speculation going on in my speculation part.
I mean, we did say at the beginning of this episode that this is
I know, but this is all stuff that we can talk about once this is actually happening.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which we don't know. We don't know how long it's going to be.
About how Zack Fair is actually a Zack Fair from a different goddamn universe.
Go ahead, Nate.
Because the big hint for this at the end of Final Fantasy VII, remember the stupid dog mascot?
Are you talking about Red 13 or are you talking about someone else?
The beagle. Yeah. The soldier beagle thing.
Oh, yes.
He is a different breed in the flyer.
Yes, he is. I remember this.
So my big theory is that Zack Fair isn't time displaced, he's a universe displaced. Because when they defeated the ghost, the timekeeper ghost, it fucked up the timelines.
Well, that makes sense, actually.
I'm still here I believe that was something that was talked about pretty extensively when REmake came out, and yes, I'm on board. I mean, it makes more sense than really anything else.
Yeah. So there were literally two clouds.
Well, we don't know if Cloud came with him. They weren't together.
No,
because Zack has to, like, at the end of Crisis Core, Zack leaves Cloud to go fight his climactic last stand battle. Because Cloud is absolutely not in any position to be able to back him up. He's basically not comatose.
He's basically
catatonic.
No, he's catatonic. Yeah. Not only that, is that trailer had a lot of Zack in it.
Yeah.
So I suspect we will be seeing a lot of our boy.
And his thing is going to be searching for Aerith.
Yes.
That's
his motivation for going back to Midgar.
I just hope that when winter comes and Square releases the so-called Crisis Core Reunion final trailer, they just don't straight up spoil the ending, because that's a thing they tend to do, for better or worse.
I mean, the ending has already been spoiled all over the place.
Okay, Nate, we're running out of time. Any lightning round predictions?
Lightning round predictions. No.
For me, I don't have any. Just that winter, I think it's going to be 2023, like the end of it.
Maybe December.
Season.
We can be hopeful.
Holiday season.
Yeah.
We can
I'll
be
say
hopeful,
October.
but also I'll be super. You know what? No, I have to imagine that it's at least going to be 2024 because winter 2023 is when we're getting Final Fantasy 14 7.0. I can't imagine that they would drop 2 products that big in the same month. That seems kind of
but then you have to
from a business
consider the
standpoint.
market. Yeah,
they would cannibalize each other.
I think they're way too different of games.
But like you have all of the people that play, because 14 is so huge now. You have all the people that are playing 14 that are like, oh, I don't have time to play Remake right now. I'm just going to have to wait till next month to get it. And then you miss your launch window sales. It just doesn't make sense to basically release them on top of each other is all I'm saying. I would expect like February or March, because the original Remake was supposed to come out in March 2020. So if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that's right.
Or they could pull a Nintendo and push the release date back, but I don't think they would do that.
No.
Okay. And with all of that exhilaration out of the way, I want to thank you guys at home for listening to another episode of the Stray Pixels podcast. We post every Tuesday on your podcast app of choice and on the Noisy Pixel YouTube channel. What are you guys excited to see out of Rebirth? Are you excited for Ever Crisis? Does it not look really cool? What do you think of our predictions of how they're going to handle the ending of Crisis Core? Let us know in the comments on YouTube. If there's anything you'd like us to talk about on a future episode, you can leave a comment under this video or talk to us on Twitter. You can find me, Colin, at the Arcane Ranger, Nate at Less Than Nathan, and Ryuji at Ryuji Blades. That's RYUJIBLADES. Or the site itself at Noisy Pixel News. The Stray Pixels podcast is brought to you by NoisyPixel.net. Noisy Pixel is run by a group of gamers who work hard to bring you the latest news, reviews, previews, podcasts, and more. Please like, subscribe, and follow to keep up with our future content, and we will see you guys next week. Peace.
Bye-bye.